Hello, today is the 18th of May 2023. I'd like to discuss today or expand a bit on my thoughts on solar, rooftop solar, on-grid or grid-tied rooftop solar energy, solar technologies, etc. I'd like to expand on my thoughts and ideas on this very fast growing industry, very fast growing option where people basically buy solar equipment, solar panels, storage, batteries, the entire system, put it in their homes, but yet remain connected to the grid, to the utility, to the electric company. Most of these systems work with the electric company connection, their power. A lot of these systems, if not most, don't even turn on without a grid connection for obvious reasons. One of them being safety, the other one being that it is intended, the rooftop solar system is intended to feed energy into the utility grid, the utility electrical grid, so that that person is charged less for the energy that they do use from the utility, or they are not charged much, if anything at all, because they generate as much energy as they use or more. Sometimes when they produce more, and I stress the word sometimes because it not always happens, they get credits back. In very rare occasions they get refunds in actual cash payment or monetary payments. But this is very fast dying and extremely rare. Most companies, electric companies, they only give you credits to basically use with them, so power credits. So in case that you produce less next month, or you use more than what you actually produce next month, those credits could be applied. Those credits may even expire. Who knows? I mean, these power companies are quite, slimy, and they really don't have it in their interest for you to save too much energy, or be off the grid, or produce more energy than what you use. They really don't like that much, and I'll explain here how in a few. But basically, that's in a nutshell, that's what a grid-tied solar system is. It's just a photovoltaic solar system that works in conjunction, in connection with your utility grid. Without it, it will not function. What it does is it synchronizes the energy produced by the solar panels using a grid-tied inverter. It synchronizes that electricity, that current, with your utility grid connection. If you may know, the alternating current is synchronized. It's basically a pattern of lows and highs. You may call it, you may envision it as a wave. Sometimes it's called a sine wave, where you have a negative voltage and a positive voltage being alternatingly changing, or you may envision it as a voltage just switching direction, going both directions, back and forth, or low and high. I mean, there's a few ways to envision it, to picture it, but it is changing. It is constantly changing, and it is changing on a very definite pattern. And this pattern has got to be the same pattern that's produced by your inverter in your grid-tied inverter for the photovoltaic system. So they must match so that you can feed that energy or current that is produced by your inverter and push it back into the grid. And what it effectively is doing, you are basically just using your locally produced current, your AC current, instead of using your grid tied or your grid utility current. So your meter, you'd have to have a net metering meter, which is a bit different, I suppose. I assume. I am not really sure what the difference is. But it allows for the power company to notice the change, to notice what you're saving, the energy that you're not using, so the meter does not runs slower when you're using your own locally produced energy through the solar system. It may stop altogether if you're using the same, if you're producing, the same amount as it's being fed to your grid. If you're using the same exact amount as the grid is providing you, and the solar system is providing you as well. If the solar system is providing you the same exact amount that you're using, then your grid-tied meter, your utility company meter, is just sitting still. It doesn't move, it doesn't tick forward. Therefore, you are at net zero at that point. You are not using any of the grid energy. Therefore, you are saving energy. If you do that for long enough, then you will, in theory, have a zero balance on your monthly bill for the amount of time that you were doing this. If you happen to produce more than what you were using, presumably you are feeding that back into the grid, making it available for other people to use that energy. In fact, that's what's going on in that instance. So through that net metering, you are being credited at that point, and then you are to be given credits for that energy that you're feeding back. Of course, it is not going to be at the same rate or value that you would pay the grid, the power company. This is, I believe, to be most common, where they pay you a bit less, sometimes a lot less than what you actually pay them. And when I say they pay you, I don't mean they pay you money. They just give you credits. That's for the most part. There may be some very rare exceptions to that. Let me know if you know any company that actually pays money, and I will update this in the comments. However, that's, I believe, to be quite rare. It may have been something that went on in the past that has gone away very, very quickly, in part because these companies don't really want you to be on solar, don't really want you to be off the grid, or even be connected to the grid and provide grid power. That is why a lot of them limit the the amount of people that could have a solar system, solar photovoltaic system in their homes. They have quotas. They have limitations in as to how many people could install that in a certain area. I have seen that in several occasions here locally, to where they have perhaps maybe a few thousand people. Once they reach that number of a few thousand people be having a solar photovoltaic, they stop providing permits, because you have to have a permit to have that in your home, a grid connected solar system in your home. And they do that for a reason. They really don't want to be basically taken out of the market by too many solar people, putting on solar panels. They don't want to allow the population to become so self-sustained electrically that they are basically not even needed anymore at one point. Theoretically, that may happen. In reality, I mean, it's going to take a lot more than just everybody getting solar panels and disconnecting to the or remaining on the grid. I'm sorry, not disconnecting, but remaining on the grid with solar panels and just taking the power company out. That just doesn't happen like that. Because the system would be extremely volatile, would be feeble and unreliable. Not to mention unsafe, with perhaps the many illegal and unsafe installations that may be connected to that grid. So those are a few reasons why the power company doesn't really want too many people being self-sustained with solar energy. So don't think for a second that the power company wants you to, or it's encouraging you to get solar panels on your roof. All you have to do to find out about this is just read their articles. There are many magazines and even news reports that are pretty much sponsored by the local electric company. Sometimes they have their own publications, magazines, shows, podcasts, websites where they have these articles that are, they range from being indifferent to solar energy to being quite hostile to it. And I've read plenty of these articles where they downplay the effectiveness and the reliability, the safety, and the affordability of solar energy. They pretty much discourage you. A lot of times you're discouraged from even thinking about getting solar energy and putting on solar panels at your home, because again, they don't really want this happening. They certainly don't want it happening too often, and they don't want it to spread out too quickly, or even spread out at all. They don't want this to become popular enough to where they themselves are at risk of losing money, shrinking, or losing their power. And what I mean by power, I don't mean electrical power. I mean their political, social power. They have lots of that, and they want to hold on to that as long as they can. They want to also grow. They want to expand, not only physically but financially. They a lot of times are investor driven, owned corporations that are looking out to grow, to make profits, even in many cases. And this is well researched, well reported. Look it up. It's out there. It's in a very it's been reported time and again in reputable news reports and other shows. There's a very good show on the topic of these utility companies, electric companies, and their corrupt and sometimes abusive tactics and behavior and the way they do business. And the show is an HBO, I believe, is also on YouTube, called Last Week Tonight. It's I believe to be a quite popular show. It's a late night show, I believe, with a little bit of humor to it, but it's well researched and well sourced, I believe, and they do say a lot of valid points. They are unapologetical in their claims, and it's quite entertaining. Not to mention the fact that it's also disturbing, the things that they say about your local power company and all the abuses and horror stories that they list, they bring forward. And you really need not to look at shows like that or reports to learn about horror stories from the power company. I mean, you yourself may have some. I have plenty myself. I mean, everyone that has been a customer of a power company, a electrical company, probably has a bitter, sour, and unpleasant experience, to say the least. If not, they have experienced outright abuse and just experienced the corruption that goes on often in these power companies. Especially if you're a person of lower income, of modest income, of modest means, you will likely very much have experienced, this with the power companies, where they are unforgiving. They are often take pleasure in, making you suffer, making you pay the money that you cannot really pay, because they got you. They've, they basically own you, and they know it. They know it because they know what type of power they have, both politically and the power they have over you, because of the predicament that you are put in by not only the power company but by your local governments and your state governments, which gives these power companies all the powers that they have. It is not only them gaining power over you, it is also your governments handing over that power to them. So going back to my main point of what I think about these solar power companies that have become very popular now, that are convincing a lot of people to have this grid connected solar power, I very much discourage it. I don't like it. I don't recommend it. Only because, even though I'm a huge solar energy advocate, I would say go solar in any, under any circumstance, under most circumstances, I'm sorry. However, if you are going to get solar under the following circumstances, then I don't recommend it. If you're going to get into massive amounts of debt, if you're going to get into debt, then don't get solar. If you're going to remain on the grid and perhaps keep paying your grid along with solar, meaning that you will remain paying your power company along with solar energy, then it is probably not wise, and it is to me nonsensical to just get solar and keep paying for both. If you are going to be beholden to both the solar energy company or companies, there could be more than one, and the grid utility company, then I don't recommend getting solar if these three things will apply. First, if you are going to get into a high amount of debt, I'm talking about thousands of dollars into debt through a loan, perhaps a loan that is quite abusive, inconvenient, expensive, with high interest rates, then I don't recommend you getting into solar this way. If, for example, you're going to get into a loan, which is very likely the case, to get a rooftop solar system installed through a company that is promising you to save you enough money to basically nullify or cancel your utility bill, you have to look at a few things. I mean, if the system is not going to be free, even though they tell you no money up front, this and that, yes, it may be no money up front, but that doesn't mean that there won't be money invested in the system, especially money invested from you in the system. You have to keep in mind that you and only you is going to pay for everything that you're getting. The power company, the solar power company, or the solar power provider is only it's not even putting in the initial investments. They're not even doing that. You're getting a loan, most likely, that is going to cover for even the salespeople that go out and their trips to your residence, to your door. It's going to pay for the survey, it's going to pay for the installation, it's going to pay for every minute and hour that you spent talking to these people. That loan is going to cover all of that. So the only investment that the company's making on you is the very, very few initial steps to get the process going, and perhaps the few hours that it takes to get the process going with the paperwork and all that. Once the loan is approved, they get paid for all of that. That could be only weeks into the negotiations of installing the system, and once the loan gets approved, they get their money. They get their money very, very quickly. I'm talking about sometimes instantly, or perhaps days to perhaps only a week or two before they get that money in their bank account. Once they get that money in their bank account, it could be thousands of dollars. It could be in the tens of thousands of dollars. I've seen plenty of reports, and I have talked to people about how much this cost them, and it could be 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, $90,000. Sometimes it could balloon up to even more than that, depending on the size of your system. Of course, if you have a larger system, you're going to get charged a larger amount of money, depending on the area, depending on the terms of the loan, depending on the finance terms, the finance percentage. All of these things will factor in to determine how big your loan will be. Sometimes this could be quite hidden, this total loan amount. They may just emphasize your payments, what your payments are going to be like, but they might de-emphasize or hide even the amount of money that you will actually pay in total throughout the life of the loan. The loan could be, more like a mortgage loan, where it could be many years. The payments could be spread out into many, many years. I'm talking, could be decades, could be 10 or more years, could be 15, 20, 25, even 30 years. Again, somewhat of a mortgage type loan, and that length of time may bring your payments down to where it seems like they're quite low. They may be targeted, again, keyword targeted, to be lower than your electrical bill. But you have to look at these very carefully, because they may change over time. They may go up over time. They may stay the same. They may go down at a certain time. They should have a breakdown of your payments and how they will come out to be, what their amounts should be, every month. More or less like a mortgage breakdown of payments. That company should be able to provide you with that. If not, then I would be very, very wary in dealing with people that won't provide you with that. So, yeah, my mentality, my attitude toward these companies is quite negative, because of the tactics that I've learned that they've used to get you to get rooftop solar. Yes, there may be a few that are honest. There may be a few that do business in your interest, and they attempt to protect you as much as they protect themselves, or perhaps close to it. But these are very rare exceptions, I believe so. So to continue on my thoughts, my attitudes toward the rooftop solar leasing with grid-tied systems. Again, these systems are usually sold with very shark-like tactics, or very abusive sometimes tactics, and that's one reason why I, for the most part, advise to avoid them. Also, you will be tied to the very grid that has been abusing you, has been using you for so many years. You will keep that connection, that relationship, and I don't really agree with that. I don't condone it. I don't recommend it. The point of getting solar panels and solar technologies such as batteries and equipment like that is to stop paying for power. If you will remain paying for power, then it is not a good deal generally. The third reason so far is that you usually have to get into a large loan, and getting into debt, saddled with debt many times under very inconvenient terms is not good. Has never been good, and I will not recommend it. The reason why these loans are so large, for the most part, generally, is because these people are charging too much for the solar system to begin with. I know, I have heard, I have read in many reports. I even worked for one of these installation companies that works with, the solar roof lease companies. There was a company called Solar Titan that was doing business here in the area. So, I've heard, the amount of money that these people are charging for these systems, small systems. I'm talking about 3,000 watts, 7,000 watts, etc. They're not very large systems for a household. A 3,000 or 7,000 watt system, unfortunately, does not cover much in a household. In fact, these systems that we put in only covered enough load under no grid connection, like in the event of a power outage. It only covers maybe 1 or 2 rooms out of a four bedroom home. It did not cover for the most part the air conditioning load or large loads. It only covered a few lights and a refrigerator, and perhaps the living room where you can still watch TV and stuff like that, or your home office, but nothing more than that. And these are 3,000 to 7,000 kilowatt systems. And yet these people are getting charged several tens of thousands of dollars for these systems. $30,000, $25,000, $35,000, $40,000 and more in some instances for these systems. And these systems don't cost half of that. The panels and the equipment involved don't cost half of those $35,000. These systems, half of 35, it's $12,500. So, excuse me, that's $17,500. So that equipment, let's say it's a 4,000 watt or 4 kilowatt system, it's not worth, repeat, not worth $17,500. The equipment itself. Then you have the remaining $17,500 being charged to you as your both installation and sales costs, and also the loan cost is also factored in there. However, I take that back. The loan cost is not factored in there. That is the amount that you are taking out as a loan. That does not mean that you're going to pay $35,000 for that loan. No, that is the amount of the amount of the loan that you're taking out. That is the money that they are giving you right there immediately, so you can pay for the equipment, the installation, and the salespeople, and everything else in between. Once you get that money, you are dealing with the bank, determining on your terms, depending on your terms, you're going to be dealing with the bank to pay off that loan, that $35,000, which is going to be perhaps 50% on top of that, perhaps 75% on top of that. But you will not be paying only the $35,000. You will be paying a lot more than that. Perhaps $45,000, perhaps $55,000 by the time the loan is paid off in 10, 15, 20 years, however the terms are. And this is because the finance rates, the finance charge that they will be charging you, not one time, but annually. They will be charging you annually a certain amount, whether it's 4.5% if you're lucky and you have very good credit, or 5.5% if you're in good shape with your credit score, 6.5% if you're about average, 7.5% if you're a little bit below average, 8.5% if you are below average on your credit score, and it goes up from there. So a lot of these companies deal with banks and loan companies that are quite predatory in nature. So I really don't recommend anyone dealing with them. Another thing that is quite disadvantageous, other than the high cost of what these people can charge for everything. They charge a lot or too much for the parts, for the equipment, for the installation, for the sales, for all the other things that they do, quote unquote, for you. They charge you too much. That's why these loans are ballooned out of proportion. They are exaggerated. They are too large for your convenience. They are too inflated. So stay away from them. Another reason why I'm not in agreement with the rooftop solar with grid tied connection through these companies is when you lease to own, or you just simply lease these systems where you don't own them. You just allow the company to put their equipment on your roof, and you pay them for the energy instead of you paying the power company. In theory, sometimes this does not occur this way, although they may promise it. You may or may not have to pay your power provider, especially initially in the first weeks to months. You may still have to pay your power provider until everything smooths out, and hopefully your power production is equal or greater than your power consumption. And hopefully your power company will honor that amount of power or energy savings that you are producing, which again is not a guarantee. when you do that, when you lease or lease to own, you lose out on the incentives that may be provided through the federal government or through your state governments for installing such a system. Some states offer pretty good, moderate to good incentives for installing solar systems, sometimes up to 20% or more of the equipment cost of your equipment could be written off as a tax credit, which could be quite advantageous for many people, especially if you have a tax what they call burden, meaning that you make enough money, you are in the lucky brackets to make enough income to have to pay taxes to the government, generally. So you may take advantage of this tax relief. Also, the federal government may cover right now through the Inflation Reduction Act. This was extended, this benefit, where you can get up to 30% tax relief from your entire installation. I believe the verbiage on it is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is your entire installation cost, meaning equipment and installation. You can shave off 30% of that and throw it on your tax as a credit. Of course, you're not going to get that money cash back or refunded, but you will get that amount deducted, or you may break it down into a few years, I believe, get a smaller deduction each year. However, you may get it all in lump sum 1 year, and you may not have to pay as much tax that year. Again, a good deal, up to 30%, which is huge for some people, and it is a huge incentive, financial incentive, even more of an incentive if you happen to live in a state that has also some tax incentives for installing solar energy systems or any other energy saving system or alternative energy system, such as wind, etc. You may be able to get both, again, as a lump sum payment or broken down into maybe a few years. So if you go with a lease, you will be losing out on that. The only person or the only entity that could claim that tax credit or those tax credits are the owners of the installed system. If you're not the owner of the installed system, then you do not qualify for the tax relief. So that is a huge disadvantage of doing that. I would rather, do it independently. Get yourself a contractor that could install solar panels and solar equipment. Get a bank willing to give you a loan on good terms, personal loan, or some other type of loan. You may even get a loan from your equity. Even that is more convenient, more wise, I believe, than getting a shark type title pawn type loan from these solar companies. So, and on top of that, not only will you usually or generally get a better deal on that loan, a better terms, lower interest rate But you will also get that tax relief credit that you very much earned, and you can claim because you then are the owner. So those are the few thoughts I wanted to share on doing grid-tied connections. I generally don't recommend it. I generally recommend more of an off-grid type system, and just disconnect your grid connection, your utility service. That way you know for sure that you will save money because you won't be paying the power company. You will not be beholden to them, so they can honor their part of the bargain. They may not, especially on the initial weeks to months, may not honor any energy savings. You may have to jump through hoops. You may have to, do a whole bunch of stuff before they even begin to consider to honor their end of the bargain and start giving you credits on the energy that you save. It's best just to shave all that off and just to go straight for the source. Cut your ties, cut your connection with your power company, and just go off grid. Do batteries with your solar system. If you want to finance it, for some reason you cannot afford at all even a small solar system, then you can finance it through your bank if you have one. If any of these options are just not options for you, you have no funds whatsoever, and you'd still like to connect to the grid, the last option would be to, yes, go ahead and keep your grid connection and connect your solar panels, but finance it through your bank. Try to finance it through your bank. Get a smaller system. Don't go crazy. Get the little bit of savings. You may still have to be paying your power company, but you're at least on your way to someday expand on that solar system. Pay it off. Fight for your terms. Make sure everything is in black and white on paper, written down. If there's anything on those terms, on those contracts that you're being made sign, not to your convenience, that you don't like, then don't sign it. Make them change it. They can always add, take stuff off to it. If they don't, then don't deal with them. Make that contract something that works for you. If they don't want to make it work for you, then don't deal with people like that. Find you another company. You can also not go through a solar rooftop lease or one of those companies. You can just get your equipment yourself and have it someone install it, and you can get your same credits just as if that company was doing it for you. And you can also get your credits like that, your financial incentives from the governments, if there are any, and you get the same results. You don't have to go through these companies that want to do everything for you, that want to make it so easy for you. No, you can make it just a bit more hard, maybe just slightly more laborious for you, but in the end you're going to enjoy the benefits of that. You're going to, not have a middle company in between that you're paying to. You're only dealing with your power company, and you're the one managing your solar panels, your solar system, and you're the owner. That is the best way to go. You can shave off the middle people. These middle people, again, are there to live off of you and every other person that they can convince that that is the way to go. Thank you very much. If you have any comments on this topic, let me know on the website where I post this chat. Thanks.